Magical adventures in fantasy otherworlds may sound fun on paper, but more often than not, they're a surprisingly risky gamble. In the best case scenario, you'll come back home and find only seconds have passed since you left, and you won't even get in trouble for being gone. Sometimes time passes at a 1-to-1 rate, and the whole time you're gallivanting around in the magical otherworld, time's still passing back in the real one, and you're gonna have some serious explaining to do if and when you get back. But the worst case scenario flips that first one on its head. You might think you only spent a few days in the otherworld, but hundreds of years could be passing in reality. The concept of localized time dilation is a staple in fiction and folklore because it's frankly deeply unnerving. As a bonus fun fact, it's a real thing in relativity. It's almost totally unobservable under normal circumstances since we tend to stay in mostly one place relative to the Earth and don't usually move at an appreciable fraction of the speed of light, but a clock moving relative to an observer can be observed to tick slower than a relatively stationary one, and a clock close to a gravitating mass will measure less time passing than a clock farther away from the same mass. Thanks to gravitic time dilation, the core of the Earth is about 2.5 years younger than the crust. This is bananas. You may remember it from Interstellar. That's basically the only time pop culture ever used this. Maybe those magical otherworlds simply reside close to the event horizon, slowed and distorted by the very nature of space-time. Or maybe it's fiction and we don't need to read too far into it. Anyway, today let's talk about a Japanese folktale about the dangers of magical otherworlds and the importance of following instructions from people who know more than you. Our story begins with a young fisherman called Urashima, who's a very sweet guy without a mean bone in his body. His profession of fisherman does make it a little difficult for him to be completely harmless, but he's very conscientious about the whole thing and doesn't do any more harm than he has to. So that's why one day, when he fishes up a massive turtle, he remembers hearing that turtles are supposed to live for 1,000 years, and he feels bad about cutting that short just for a tasty dinner, so he throws the turtle back and settles in for a nice little fishing boat nap. This is when a beautiful woman rises out of the water, steps into the boat, and tells Urashima that she was that turtle and is also the daughter of the sea god, and she's here because he just proved himself in a secret test of character and is qualified to be her husband. Urashima likes the sound of that, and he and the princess sail out to the Dragon Palace to be married, where they settle in to live together in riches and luxury for 1,000 blissful years. And if only the story ended there. But while Urashima is a big fan of this magical palace and dragon princess wife situation, after about 3 years of divine marital bliss, he starts feeling a little bit homesick, and he wants to sail back to his humble village to check in on his family and friends, you know? The dragon princess doesn't think this is a very good idea, but she won't stop him, so she just warns him to be very careful, because she has a feeling something very bad might happen if he does anything reckless. She gives him a small box and warns him not to open it under any circumstances or he won't be able to come back. So Urashima tucks the box away, grabs his boat, and sails back home. But it's not quite what he was expecting to see. The mountains and rivers are all the same, but the buildings are gone, including his house. He flags down a couple passing beachgoers and asks them what happened to the Urashima house, and they tell him that's a weird thing to ask since it's an old folktale around these parts. 400 years ago, some kid named Urashima drowned on a fishing trip and never came home. His family are, of course, long dead, and even the village he lived in has fallen into ruin. Urashima realizes the Dragon Palace might just be one of those magical fairy realms he's heard about, where time passes a lot slower on the inside than the outside. He thought it was only 3 years, but it's been centuries out here. Well, that's a bummer, but what are you gonna do, right? With no surviving friends or family and no reason to stick around, Urashima prepares to head back, only to realize he doesn't remember the way. Surprise, surprise, the ocean doesn't have too many identifiable landmarks. Urashima freaks out and panics for a bit before remembering the box and thinking maybe there'll be something inside he can use. Surprise, surprise, there isn't. When he cracks the box, the only thing inside is a vaguely ominous cloud of vapor and the recollection that that was the one thing he was supposed to not do. Whoops. Whatever magic was in the box dissipates, and Urashima gets hit with 400 years of backlog time all at once, rapidly aging all the way up into a corpse. Total bummer. Moral of the story? Well, aside from the standard don't disobey magical orders from fairy tale ladies, maybe, make sure you and your fiancé are fully on the same page before moving in together. You might handle your chores differently or have different standards of organization. That's just the kind of stuff you should really talk out first. And also, your fiancé's house might be a relativistic anomaly that completely cuts you off from your friends and loved ones forever, which is just generally a red flag.
Maybe this time I'll be lucky. Maybe this time he'll stay. Maybe this time, for the first time, love won't hurry away.